people of the internet. My name is Jaden. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here and you don't know me yet, I post a lot of wellness and lifestyle content, but I've also occasionally done a little bit of travel content, and I'm trying to branch more into financial stuff, which is why I wanted to make this video here today. This is not typically what I post a lot about, but I figured you guys would be interested, especially if you did watch my Bali video and you're curious about maybe doing a trip yourself, or if you're interested and just want to look into it a little bit more. My situation was pretty unique. My trip was actually hosted by a YouTuber. Her name's Anna. I'll put her channel right here and I'll link it down in the description below. She is super cool and I was so excited when she did announce this trip. It was through a company called Trip. I had never heard of them before this whole ordeal, but essentially what happens with these trips is a creator, I would assume, goes to them, or maybe they reach out to the creator. I didn't necessarily ask, but either way the creator goes to this agency, I guess is the best word for them, and they can choose from some of the locations that they already have available. Trip kind of already has a few different itineraries planned, and you kind of select from there. So obviously the one that we went on was to Bali. We did the one that was 3 days in Ubud and 3 days in Canggu. So in total it was 5 full days and 2 half days. So about 6 days-ish, plus with travel, which we'll get into. That was a lot for me. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of all of it. So when Anna actually first announced this trip and it was available to do early bird pricing, that was when I booked it, which was, I believe, July of last year, maybe June. So it was an entire year ago that I actually booked the trip, and I didn't have to pay everything up front. So I had a year of kind of prepping, saving, planning. Like, I believe there was a little bit of a down payment. Maybe it was like $900-ish. But it's a very small portion, obviously, of what I paid for the entire trip. For your reference, this is all gonna be in USD because I do live in the United States and that is the currency that I use. I also will reference Indonesian rupiah, or IDR, because for some of the days we did pay in cash. However, I'm gonna convert that all back to USD. So first and foremost, when you book this trip, it's through this agency. They do a lot of things for you. Not everything, but they do a lot. So I don't remember what the initial down payment was, but like I said, I believe it was like $900, $899 if you want to be specific. And I didn't have to pay the full amount until May of this year, I think. So about 2-3 months before. And what I paid on the Trip side was $2,088. Now, that covers all of the accommodation, every single breakfast that we ate, half of the lunches and dinners, basically meaning that if we did something in the first half of the day, we got lunch paid for. If we did something in the latter half of the day, we got dinner paid for. It was one or the other every day, and the other we had to take care of ourselves. All of the activities that we did, which included the monkey forest, the waterfall, the Rumadesa cooking class experience, water purification ceremony, I'm gonna say this wrong probably, but Tayan Palace, and also Tanah Lot. This is just like the entrance fee because we did pay for like a few things here and there with the activities, but they were optional parts of the activities, not actually to get in and do it. And also all the transportation to and from the activities from the hotels and also back. Additionally, I chose to have a Balinese massage in that, which was an optional add-on. It was $66 by itself. Nothing else in the pricing was like specified to what it's going towards. And the only other thing that I could have chose to pay more for is if I wanted a single room. So that pricing also is with a shared room with a person I did not know. Also, a small disclaimer is that a lot of the places we did go for lunch or for dinner, they actually didn't provide the drinks in that. So we got like our meal. I think some of the places offered water, but a lot didn't. So you either had to pay for a bottle of water, or if you wanted a soda or a juice, you had to pay for that yourself additionally, which was a little weird for me, but whatever. I guess it's just because a lot of people might be getting like cocktails and stuff. Not that we did, like we were just looking for like Sprite or water, and that's definitely a culture shock for me that that's not included, but it's a very small thing. The flights, you probably will not be surprised to know, were actually much more expensive than like booking the trip itself. I think it was actually more expensive than like the total of of everything else that I paid for are very, very close. My flights were $3,079.99. This is for 6 flights. Not that I really had a choice to do anything less. But yeah, 6 flights, long layovers, a lot of flying. I'll put the details of all my flights right here. Well, all of the flight times, all of the layover times, but it was from Denver to San Francisco to Singapore, and Singapore to Bali, and of course, backwards the other way. So that's sick. I love having to pay $3,000 to fly 30 hours. It's like, wow, such a luxury. You have to be in economy on a 17-hour flight. Sorry, I'm still kind of coming off of the pain of traveling that long. It sucks so much. So I have to be a little bit better. Even though, yes, I know I am very, very lucky and I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to do that. Economy flights still hurt your soul. Bali also has a few different documents that you have to fill out beforehand. Some of them do cost a little bit. So I paid $83.20 for my e-visa and also the arrival fee. I chose to do my currency exchange ahead of time, which I know is controversial and a lot of people are probably gonna be like, that's not the best way to do it. I don't care. I have a lot of anxiety and I was very scared about doing currency exchange in a foreign country all the way across the world by myself. I already had a lot of stress and anxiety about the trip and I want to make the situation as least painful as I possibly could manage. So I went to my bank, Chase specifically, and I asked them for currency ahead of time. So what I ended up paying was $99.17, which translates to 1,635,283 IDR, which is your first taste of Indonesian rupiah. If you haven't been exposed to this currency before, it's a lot. I think for me, I ended up getting like 1,400,000 just because I don't think I was getting the best rate. But again, that wasn't the priority here for me. It was just getting it done and getting it off of my to-do list ahead of time so I didn't have to deal with the anxiety later on. Also, something else I really fucked up on was my eSIM. So I had a lot of drama installing my eSIM, which I'm not going to go into too much detail of, but essentially I installed it too early, deleted my cellular data, freaked out, and then of course had to reinstall the eSIM later on because I did it too early previously. So I ended up having to pay twice for it, even though I was supposed to get refunded, just like didn't really work. So again, just one of those things where it felt a little too anxiety inducing, a little too stressful for me to have to figure out how to go back and get a refund. So I just paid the full price twice. It was $45 originally, but of course $90 when I paid it twice for 5 gigabytes of data. I also only ended up using about 1. So huge mistake on my part. I also did not enjoy the experience of using an eSIM. I don't think it was anything specific with Nomad, which was the company I bought it from. I just didn't like the way it worked on my phone, but I don't really have a better alternative. I think it was the best that I could have done in that situation. Of course, if I just paid the price once and maybe if I got a smaller data plan, but I digress. It is what it is and I paid a little extra for it and it's okay. I also did a little bit of shopping beforehand, which debatable if this should or shouldn't be included. This is all stuff that I bought in preparation for this trip. So I spent $994.23 shopping for stuff before I even went on the trip. I would say probably 85-90% of this was clothes. I think like 5% was medicine and another 5% was just random stuff that I just wanted as like functional items. So like I said, I did get a lot of clothes and a lot of medicine, but I also got things like a phone strap so that if a monkey tried to pull my phone out of my hand, it wouldn't be able to slip out as easily. I also got like a logic puzzle book for the plane. I also got a book light. Also for the plane, I probably didn't need a lot of stuff I bought, not gonna lie. If you're sensing a pattern here, there definitely is one. I tend to spend a lot out of anxiety before I do something because I try to get myself as prepared as humanly possible. And when I realize I'm in a safe space and I don't need all these emergency things, I end up not using as much. But it's like insurance to me. Like you get it just in case. So yeah, sue me for being prepared, especially when I'm already broke, you know? Made some questionable decisions. Anyways, we're gonna move on here. And everything past this point is stuff that I only bought when I was physically in Bali. And this number is so ridiculously low in my book. I spent so much less there than I expected. So it at least offsets what I did beforehand a little bit. And I'll be honest, I did do a similar thing where I spent more than I needed to. I could have cut corners for sure, but because stuff is so cheap there and because I'd budgeted a lot more than what I was spending, I wasn't concerned. So for transportation, their main mode of of transportation there is Grab. Most people just go with the scooters or the bikes for everything. I took 3 cars and only 2 bikes for the entire trip, and that cost me $36.25. I also paid an additional $1.33 for tips and for fees. I had to pay 12,000 IDR just to get into the airport, like to have a Grab car go into the airport boundaries. And that only translates to 73 cents, but just for clarification, they do charge you for that. Also, through Trip, we do get a guide and a driver. It's the same 2 people throughout the whole entire trip, and of course we loved ours. They were great to us, so we did give them a tip at the end. My portion was $16.84. Since we're still in the area of Grab and driving, I also got a couple of deliveries. So I didn't get to play out this full experience because I actually got Bali belly on day 4. So I was sick for the second half, basically the entirety of Canggu. And when I first started getting sick, I panicked and ordered Sprite and crackers because that is my go-to sickness food. And then a little bit later, once I was like kind of recovering from it, but I was still too tired to like leave my bed, I ordered from a place called the Pasta Dealer, and I got some spaghetti and meatballs, mozzarella sticks, french fries, stuff like that. So my total for snacks and delivery was $21.04. Now the restaurant was easily my biggest spending category, and some of them were actually pretty expensive for like American standards. Even just for a meal in general, I was like, okay, I'm racking up. In total, I paid $73.89 on restaurants. The most expensive one was a place at our hotel. It's called Ramu Kitchen. I got the braised short rib and a lot of water. The water really adds up there if you're paying for it every time. That was $30.24. We went to Luigi's in Canggu. I got pepperoni pizza, a milkshake, and again, water. $26.06. And when we were at the market, we stopped for lunch at a place called Sini Saja. I got a smash burger, fries, and a Sprite. That was $11.53. So those were the 3 restaurants that I just paid for out of pocket entirely, and they were not included with the trip. There are 2 other places that I just got add-ons with the meal that was provided. Like I said, they make you pay for your drinks. The first place was the Hawi Resto, is I think how you say it. I paid $3.64 for 1 coconut, and I get those things are huge, but that one was insane. Then at Rumah Desa for the cooking experience, I got watermelon juice, and that was $2.43. Also a little bit steep in my opinion for 1 singular juice, but I'm not complaining. Those things definitely weren't the thing that like tipped me over the edge of spending too much money, so all good there. Actually, I spoke too soon about my categories of where I spent too much money. I actually spent the most money at the airport with the fast food there and the snacks and all the goodies, just because I had such long layovers and I needed food. I spent $109.61 at airports. None of them like particularly stood out to me. I paid $11.86 for McDonald's at Denver, paid $25.25 for a grilled cheese and a smoothie at Sidewalk Juice in San Francisco, $11.96 for Popeyes in Singapore, $6.95 again in Singapore at Burger King this time, and $53.59 at a little convenience store in San Francisco. But to be fair, I also bought a book at that one, but it was for a book, some fruit, a water, and M&Ms. And lastly, for the activities that I did while I was there, it was $52.43 for Swing Heaven, which is the place I took all of my pictures and videos on the swings and on the different little like photo shoot areas. You also get a dress that you can rent with this, and I only took advantage of like 3 photo spots, but there are probably 20 different ones that you can do, and these guys will take as many pictures and videos as you want. Like, they will go crazy. That was so worth it to me. That was everything. I think if there was any place that I would recommend the most, it would be there, and I would go back there a million times over. I also paid 61 cents for a locker at Canto Lampo Waterfall. Again, didn't pay like an entrance fee, but because we wanted a locker, we had to pay for that. Also, if you do want the guides to take your picture there, you have to tip them. I can't remember how much it was, but it was somewhere between 10 to 20,000. I think it was 10,000, which is also just 61 cents. We were lucky enough to have, 12 girls there, and we all just took each other's pictures. So didn't have to pay for that, but we did have to pay for the locker just because we didn't want our stuff around the waterfall area. And if you're wondering wondering why Swing Heaven was like the only activity that I paid for, that's because it wasn't actually included in the trip. It was just like this little bonus thing that we went and did, and that was my favorite thing of all of it. Lastly, I did buy one souvenir at the market, which was one out of two things that I wanted as a souvenir. I got a singular magnet of just a Bali flower and it says Bali on it. I paid $1.82 for that magnet, and yes, I could have haggled. I could have gotten that a lot cheaper, but I saw no reason to haggle for a $2 magnet. Like, again, social anxiety and just anxiety in general, it's not my strong suit. I just took the L of the additional, like, what, 80 cents and just ran with it. And that is quite literally all I paid for. The worst part was all the damage I did ahead of time. I really could have spent a lot less in preparation. There wasn't really much I could do about, you know, the actual trip price and the flights. But yeah, maybe I didn't have to go shopping as hard. Maybe I could have gotten a better rate for my currency. Maybe I could have not paid twice for my eSIM. Just a thought. But I am not mad at all about what I spent when I was there, because when I went to Korea, I think I spent $2,000-$3,000 on just shit while I was there. So when you add up all the things that I spent, like from the day that I left to the day that I got back, I spent $359.12. Not bad at all, in my opinion. I did have a kind of expected budget for like every category, and I went under for everything. I thought I was gonna spend $60 on transportation. I only spent about $40, $250 on food and drinks. I think I only spent like $150, $200. $50 on activities. I did spend just about that much, a little bit over, but just about the same. $150 on shopping, and I only spent $2. I also very much expected to get a nap room on the way back home because I had an 8-hour layover in San Francisco after my 16-hour flight. So that was gonna be like $185. And in the end, I decided I didn't feel like paying that much money, especially because stuff was so cheap while I was in Bali. I was like, why am I gonna sit here and pay $180 just to take a nap in a room? Like, I'll just take a nap on the floor. And yeah, that ended up being one of the most miserable experiences that I've ever had, but I made it through, and I don't regret saving that money, specifically because I overspent a lot of other times, and I felt like it was time to reel myself in and get a reality check. But let me stop yapping. I know you guys are probably waiting for a full total. So in total, I spent $6,748.41. Naturally, I would have expected this trip to cost about $6 to $7 grand, so this was pretty on the money for me. Now, looking back, I took 7 days of PTO for this trip, and I was gone for 10 days in total. I only had 5 full days, start to finish, actually over there, and I only got to experience 3.5 days of actually doing things and being present because I got sick. Now, that little extra bit of me being sick and only getting to experience 3.5 days, that doesn't really matter because I still had the opportunity to do everything else. I just like couldn't. So I still paid for like the rest of those days and just didn't do it. And I'm talking about the value of like the whole experience and booking a trip to Bali and doing it through a Trova trip, all of that. So trust me when I'm not being biased in my answer. Like, if I did get to experience the last 2.5 days, I don't think I would have felt like that much differently. Do I think that nearly $7 grand for this trip was completely worth it? Kind of. Like, I spent a very similar amount to go to Korea last year, and that was a 2-week trip, like full 2 weeks there. Of course, my mom did help pay for a lot of it at that point, so I'm also taking that into consideration. But also, I went to Korea before that, so I think I take that experience of going twice into consideration for a lot of this. When you go on a trip to someplace that is that far away and requires that much travel time and takes such an expensive plane ticket, it's not as worth it to do a shorter trip. Like, you almost need 2 to 3 weeks on a vacation like that to make it worth it, especially because it takes about 3 days to recover from jet lag, at least for me. So I literally took the first 3 days. Once I finally recovered from jet lag, I got sick with Bali belly. So like, for me, I want to say objectively the value of the experience was not worth the money, but I think I cherished this trip so much, and it does mean a lot to me. Like, it was a big part of my journey. It was important that I did this, and the girls there, they were just so wonderful. And I don't know, like, I have such good feelings about this trip that I can't say that I regret it at any point, and I can't say that it wasn't worth it, but I do think that overall I I wish it would have costed less. I think the value of it would be more in like a 3 to 5 grand range. Not that there was too much I could do to control it. Obviously I could have cut corners, as I said, but with the flights there's only so much you can do when you live that far away. Yeah, that's kind of my final assessment. I don't really have like a straight answer here, just kind of take it as you will. It's really up to you. Think about what you see value in. Like I said, a lot of this trip for me was the fact that it was a solo trip. It was my first time ever doing something like that. It was my first time ever going on a trip with strangers, and it was just a crazy thing. Like, it was crazy for me to do. I can't believe that I did it. Like, still, even now, I don't believe that that actually happened. So I think it had a lot of value for the fact that it was like Trova Trip. And if you have the opportunity to do something through Trova Trip, I would highly recommend them. They're pretty cool. They're a great company. And I'll probably have talked about this more in my Bali vlog, but I think Bali was just a scary place for me. Like, I'm not a food person. Like, I am very picky. Like I said, I have a lot of anxiety. So I think just Bali as a country was a little bit intimidating and scary for me, and that made it harder. And that kind of altered my perception on the trip and made me a little more harsh on it because I was so overwhelmed. It kind of took over my brain a little bit. But Trova Trip, for sure, awesome. If you're anything like me, I would do a trip through Trova Trip, but maybe somewhere that you're more comfortable in, you have more experience in, or like it comes more naturally to you, than a place that's so culturally different and so far away. That's all I really have to say. If you guys have any other questions, I will gladly answer them down in the comments below. But I think that's all I can think of for right now for you guys. If you guys like this video, be sure to leave a like and a comment, and if you're feeling generous, you can even subscribe. I do hope to see you guys all in the next video, but if not, bye-bye! Also, make sure to watch my Bali vlog if you haven't yet. It'll be right here along with the button to subscribe. Okay, now bye!